if you invest today, most people don't think of it when they're investing in a franchise, but you're 9 to 12 months from actually opening. So by the time you even get open, this pandemic will be over, and you'll have a lot of answers. And I always say that you're in it for the long game if you buy a franchise, not the short game. This will pass.
Welcome to the Hire Yourself podcast. If you're ready to take control of your destiny, build wealth, and live life on your own terms, this is the place for you. Each week, Pete and I talk about business, franchising, and personal growth to help make you more successful.
Well, Nat, I'm really excited for today's podcast. We have a very special guest. We've got Nick Sheehan, the co-founder and the managing partner of Rep'em. And I've known you, Nick, for a long time, so it's real pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks for having me, Pete. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I was so excited to see. I think I saw a presentation on the company that you created, and so today what I wanted to do is to really kind of get in and let you share what the special Rep'em business it's just very cool to me. So, but let's take a step back because you've been in franchising for a long time. So, tell me a little bit about how you got into franchising in the first place.
Yeah, so it's like a lot of people, I always say franchising, people don't wake up and go to college and say, you know what, let me get into franchising, right? It's not how it works. We've all stumbled in this industry somehow, some way. And it's no different for me. So I actually was going to school. I went to school in South Florida. I went to a college called Lynn University, and I was getting my MBA. And I had a guy that had come in to speak about entrepreneurship. And he was a guy in his 70s, retired down in South Florida. And I had a boat washing business, a car cleaning business, and a plane cleaning business down in there with a friend. And after class, I just simply went up to him and said, hey, I'd like to see if I could get more business while I'm doing this, while I'm in college. Love your advice. He gave me some pointers. And the next day, my dean said, hey, this guy would like to meet you at his country club for lunch. Would you like to do that? And I was like, sure. So I went there and I felt like I was entering a scene of grumpy old men. There was, a bunch of 75-year-old guys sitting around a table. But he introduced me to everybody and he said, hey, this is so-and-so. He was the ex-CEO of Sealy Posturepedic. This guy owns the largest nail distribution company. And it just went around the room. And for me, that sparked entrepreneurship right away. And they just started mentoring me. I went every week and just listened to the guys. And they had so many war stories about business and so on. Long story short, after about 4 months, he said, hey, I might have a business opportunity. He had a lot of money. And he said, I'd love to invest in a young kid like you if you're interested. So lo and behold, we found a business in the ink and toner recycling business. Do you remember Cartridge World and all those companies?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this was about 2004. And he said, if you want to start, knocking on doors and seeing what you can do with this, let's do it. So I started knocking on businesses' doors, door to door, started selling ink and toner cartridges, and it worked. And all of a sudden I had toners everywhere in my apartment, and we started doing it. And a year later, we opened a retail store. And a year after that, we franchised it. It was called Cartridge Depot. And I cut my teeth on franchising that way. I did everything. I sold the franchises. I trained the franchisees. I held the annual conferences, and I had a couple employees, but we got it up to 35 locations and then we sold it. And that was 2012. And that's when I met the infamous Terry Powell from the Entrepreneur Source. And I consulted with him for about a year just because I didn't know what I wanted to do next. But you know what that did for me? It took me from understanding how to take a brand from nothing and grow it to seeing the world of big franchisors and the infrastructure and the things they put in place. So it was a really good learning experience for me. And that's where I met, at that point, I think this was now 7 years ago, I met St. Gregory. And that was right when, St. Gregory had founded Cycle Bar and so on. So it was just a very amazing time to be a part of that organization. And I was there for 5.5 years, with thousands of territories with that infrastructure.
That's awesome.
And became a Cycle Bar franchisee.
If I remember correctly, you are a Cycle Bar franchisee. Is that correct?
I am, yeah. So in 2015, I partnered with someone. We opened one location, and 3 years later, we actually have 15 locations now.
Holy cow! How many employees do you have with 15 locations?
I didn't want to know that. I always tell my partner, he's an operating partner. I say, I don't want to know how many employees. I'll probably have a hyperventilating moment. I had to figure it out during COVID, though, for obvious reasons. We had 410 employees.
Holy cow. That's good. Yeah. Well, hopefully you got a good business partner to kind of watch over that.
Yeah, he's
All
great.
right. So a perfect time to launch a new company would be in the middle of a pandemic, right? So
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about, you're a co-founder of Rep'em, and
Yes.
the best I can tell is you guys have developed a really kind of cool tool that has 4 pillars to it. And so first, I'd like you to just tell us, why'd you come up with the idea, or why'd you start Rep'em? I mean, we can question the timing in the middle of a pandemic, but nobody plans a pandemic. But tell us why you created Rep'em.
Yeah. So I think when everything, kind of transpired with St. Gregory, but what I had learned a lot over the past 4 or 5 years in working with mostly emerging brands is I saw so many emerging brands would come out of the gate with a great concept, whether they had 5, 10, 15, 20 units open, didn't matter. But at the end of the day, it's so different from going from that, size of a business to, hey, let's dump 50 to 100 franchises on you and let's see what that looks like. And the reality was, what I found was most of them, if not all of them, were not prepared for it. And so as I looked at it, it was, how can we create an entire support mechanism for these emerging franchisors that would not only just sell the franchises, it would help support them operationally and get them set up to build that foundation the right way from day one, so that they can be prepared for the growth. And so, I've known Rob Cambruzzi, who's one of my partners in this business, for a long time. And just the marriage of what he knows from Driven Brands, what I know is St. Gregory, and all of that really created a mesh of what we wanted to build together. And it just kind of came together nicely. So we thought that was the main reason, though, is to help these young emerging brands really grow. And if they don't need all of our services, have a la carte services as well.
Right. So you developed it to help people or franchisors be more successful, right? So
Correct.
So let's start going through the 4 pillars. So what would be the first pillar you'd want to tell us about?
The first pillar is called Brandem. So the company's called Rep'em, and then we did kind of funny taglines around each one. And the first one's called Brandem. Brandem really focuses on the brand development and focuses on the marketing strategies and really the go-to-market strategies, most importantly. But the brand DNA, I learned so much from our gentleman named Gary DeJesus, who we've actually brought on as a partner on the Brandem pillar. And Gary, goes Harvard grad. He was Procter and Gamble branding guy for 18 years. So he has that DNA in him. And I got to work with him at St. Gregory for 5 years, and I saw what his capabilities were around that. And it was truly unique. So, what we want to do for brands is, we're not coming in and saying, hey, let's just completely change your brand. It's no, let's perfect what you have, so that when we go to market, first off, what your strategy is for the go to market. And it focuses on, for example, the OGSM. So objectives, goals, strategies, and measures. We have a 4-day exercise around that. And then the other part is, we always call it the race to break even. What does that look like? And how do we put that in the marketing effort so that there's a firm strategy to get those franchisees there? And so it's really just, we literally spend 3 months on organizing a brand, 3 to 6 months before we even launch it to go to market in that Brandem division.
So is it branding for the franchisor, or is it translate to branding for the specific franchisees, or is it a combination of the both of them?
Combination of the both, because they coincide obviously together. So yes, it's both.
All right. So you help them figure out, okay, what's your brand, how you're going to implement that. All right. Talk about the second pillar.
Second pillar is Grow 'em, which is really, if you want to look at it as an FSO, that's the sales organization. So that's me running that. I've obviously did that for a long time with St. Gregory. So once the brand has gone through that Brandem exercise, then we're saying, okay. And then in that same time, Pete, we'll actually build all of the marketing around how are we going to promote it to the candidates and how are we going to message it. One thing I got really good at is shaping it in a good way to go to market so that it makes sense for the investors. So once we have that, then, okay, they're ready to go. Let's start getting candidates in the pipeline, and let's build that infrastructure around sales.
Okay, so sales, you're talking about specifically franchise development, where you'll come in and help the franchisor find franchisees, take them through the process and have them sign and become franchisees. All right.
Correct.
And you guys do that kind of A to Z for them, right? Literally, you come in, you're the front end, the franchise development. They don't have to worry about anything other than being leaders and driving their business. You guys focus on finding the franchisees.
Correct. Yeah. We basically say when the lead comes in, we take it, and then until they sign that franchise agreement, they're not in your hands. We take it from A to Z. Yes.
Got it. All right. Talk to us about the third pillar.
Yeah. So this is where it was very unique in that, Rob Cambruzzi, my partner, had created a concept called RPM. And RPM was a real estate construction management company that essentially worked with franchisors to help their franchisees not only find real estate, but also manage the construction process if they're a retail brand. And he developed that brand over 3 years ago. Has about 25 employees under that pillar, and has about 30 brands, franchisors that he works with. And so what we decided was, let's create one company, and it went from RPM to Rep'em, right? So kind of coincided with that, and we changed RPM to Build 'em. So it's now called Build 'em, is the third pillar, and that division really hasn't changed. But as we bring in emerging franchisors, one thing we know for sure is another problem I've always seen is, okay, you can sell them, but can you open them? And so we want to make sure they get open in a timely manner, and they get the best deal they can. And so from a procurement perspective, from a site selection perspective, from a design perspective, all those things that are key, we work with in that part of Build 'em, and make sure that the franchisees are getting open, and construction management goes as smooth as it can, because it never goes real smooth.
Absolutely. So is Build 'em something special that nobody else really has from a standpoint of a structure, from helping you find the location to helping you optimize the space or the design to the build out from a standpoint? That's pretty unique to have all three of those bundled together in terms of a service offered to the franchisees. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. I don't know anyone that has all of that in-house, and we don't, there's a lot of companies that have it outsourced, but we do it all in-house. We're not real estate brokers. It's the only thing we're not, but we work with several brokerage companies, but we do have the whole construction management team in-house that manages it and works with the franchisees on a weekly cadence on where their project is at, through our proprietary system.
Do you help them negotiate the leases?
Yep. It's not only do we help negotiate it, we actually help collect. If they're going to get tenant improvement dollars, we're the ones collecting those checks for them. The franchisees do not have to do that.
Got it. All right. Excellent. Sounds very cool to me. Build 'em. All right. Talk to me about the fourth pillar.
So the fourth pillar is called Scale 'em. So this is where we talk about, all right, operationally, how can we make them whole? And we've actually added a few people as of recent. Rob knew a gentleman named Jason Ryan. So Jason Ryan was actually at one point the CFO of Driven Brands, and then he was the president of the Mako division within Driven Brands. He just loves operations. At a time, Mako, still to this day, is a $600 million P&L company with roughly 600 franchisees, and he managed that. So he did everything from onboarding new franchisees to working with franchisees, through KPIs, through struggling franchisees, and how do you help them get back on track, and so on. So Scale 'em, what we do is, if a new brand comes on with us, we're first looking at, okay, what do you have in place for operations today, and where do you need to go? And the first thing is always looking at key performance indicators, right? With the model, how do we build it around that? Because everything is reverse engineered from there. And so we also brought in recently, we brought in Rebecca Horowitz. So Rebecca Horowitz was the VP at Meineke, and she is also a Harvard grad and also Wharton Business School grad, and she is a guru around creating all of these KPIs, putting together the operation manuals. We do all that on behalf of our franchisors to help them. And then the last thing is always legal. And again, we know from what we do, we need to have everything buttoned up for our franchisors. So we were able to bring in Brian Ramonzo. Brian Ramonzo was the head legal counsel at Driven Brands. So we got him to come over recently. Also another pedigree guy. He's a Princeton grad. And we have a really good team, and Scale 'em is probably in my opinion, it's one of the most important pillars for us, because if they don't operate the franchisees, or the franchisor doesn't help the franchisees as they should, as they might think they should need and have help. But the reality is most of them don't have that infrastructure. So our job is to make sure that we set them up the right way with all of our experience, knowing what needs to be done. That's what Scale Them is really all about.
So it's totally turnkey. So they come in and you literally Scale Them comes in and helps put the infrastructure in place, the systems, all that kind of stuff. So figure out what your key KPIs are, and then work backwards to every step you need, including legal, like the FDD, all that kind of stuff.
Correct. And including procurement. So even if, they need vendors like a call center or whatever it might be, we have the vendors to hook them up with that so that every piece of the puzzle is put in place. Our goal, Pete, at the end of the day is we want them to look and feel like a franchisor that has 100 units open when they only have 5 or 10. And
cool.
We're setting it up that way.
That's really cool. And so let's talk about that. So if I'm a business owner, I have this business, I have this great idea, I've been running it, it's been successful. Can I come to you and say, listen, I want to franchise this. I want to take advantage of your group to do that. So the Rep-Em group, is that something that you guys do? You literally take somebody that has this business and help them scale it to become a franchise?
That's right. Yeah. So we'll have initial meetings. We'll kind of assess on that meeting where they are in the process. The nice thing is because we brought in Gary and I worked on putting together what we call the incubator program. So even if they're not ready to go to market in a big way, they can join us on this incubator program, and it might take a year, it might take 18 months, but we'll put them in this program so that we're getting them ready to go to that phase, and we'll guide them all along the way to get there. So we kind of create an infrastructure for us to have some potential brands that might blossom in the near future based on working with us.
Great company you've developed or co-founded. That is so cool. So let me ask you this. Now we're in this middle of this pandemic, or I guess we're coming out of it, or whatever stage we're at. But tell me, if you were talking to somebody that wanted to invest in a franchise, because, we work with people to help them explore franchises. Is this a good time to invest in a franchise? How do you see it?
I see it as it couldn't be a better time. And I'm not just saying that because we're in the sales business for selling franchises. I literally think that in times like a pandemic or a downturn in the economy, oftentimes it's sometimes the best times to get into a business because interest rates are down and different things that wouldn't be there in a good economy are available. Real estate, for example, there is going to be more opportunity in finding good real estate deals right now than there ever will be, probably in our lifetime again, based on what's happening in the market. So I think it's a great time to be a part of franchising for those reasons. I also think most of it, especially if you're in a retail brand, if you invest today, most people don't think of it when they're investing in a franchise, but you're 9 to 12 months from actually opening. So by the time you even get open, this pandemic will be over, and you'll have a lot of answers. And I always say that you're in it for the long game if you buy a franchise, not the short game. This will pass. We will come out of it, and every franchisee will come out of it if they work through those issues. So I don't think it's a bad time at all. I think there's some real advantages right now.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I want to thank you and congratulate you. Your success, it's very cool. I like what you built with Rep-Em. I think you have a lot to offer people that want to build their businesses, scale their franchises. And I'm excited to watch you as you continue to build this business. And best thing I can tell is you've surrounded yourself with a lot of really smart people. So that's good.
Well, I always say that I just want to surround myself with smart people because I barely graduated high school. So, I need to get smart people around me.
I'm right there with you. So, Nat, you want to throw anything in there?
No, that just about covers it. I was thinking the same thing though, as he was telling about the pedigree. That wow, Nick you're smart to find people that can find the answers, Nick. So good job building a team.
Thanks for listening to the Hire Yourself podcast. For more resources, check out our website at hireyourself.com. And remember to subscribe to this podcast to receive each episode. Please leave us a rating, and we'd love to hear your feedback and suggestions for topics.